Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. N, and members of the UPI team, members of the advisory, my fellow Nobel Peace Prize winners, family, friends, young people in the audience, future leaders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful to God for the journey to Japan. This is my first time in Japan, and for an opportunity to interact with great minds. I'm honored to be here today, speaking at this conference dedicated to finding a path toward peace. And Mr. Moon, we, the international women assembled here, protest the madness and horrors of war. Wars involving, as it does, to reckless sacrifice of human life, the destruction of so much that humanity has labored for through centuries to build. This International Congress of Women opposes the assumption that women can be protected under conditions of modern warfare. We protest vehemently against the odious wrongs of which women are the victims in times of war, and especially against the violation of women which attends with all wars. We express sympathy to the sufferings of all, whatever their nationality, who are fighting for their country or laboring under the burden of war, quote unquote. These words were the sentiments expressed 108 years ago by the women at The Hague during World War I. In their resolution adopted at the end of their Congress, this led to the formation of the Women League for Peace and Freedom. When you listen to these words, one would think that it is being spoken in 2023 instead of 1915. Our world today is belabored with similar or even worse situations. Whilst activism has increased, whilst diplomacy has increased, and the political dynamics has somewhat shifted to militarism, while the economic probability of war has made peace elusive and conflict resolution more daunting. Wars are raging in Yemen, wars are raging in Syria, Central African Republic, wars are raging today in the Gaza, Ukraine, Afghanistan, many other places. Some wars are now forgotten wars in our world today. In our own part of the world, West Africa, military coup and military dictatorship is plaguing those areas. There seems to be no end in sight for the sufferings of women and children. In 1989, 2 days after my high school graduation, my own country, Liberia, went to war. As a young 17-year-old, anxious to go to medical school and become a pediatrician, everything that I had been socialized to believe went away. The war took over our country. Almost 10,000 of our compatriots were killed in 14 years. 500,000 more were made refugees in neighboring countries around Liberia. 1 million of our people were internally displaced, including myself and my family, internally displaced and refugees. We had to move many times because of the horrors and dangers of war. Today, we can't even begin to say why Liberians went to war. No one can tell you we fought because of a particular reason. Some people will say we went to war because of natural resources. Others will say because of the influence of the free slaves that came from America. Some will say because of political hardship. Many people will say many things, but as a people, we can never really say this is the reason why we fought. During the 20 years of war, the greatest brunt of the war was borne by women. I remember as a young girl many times walking from different parts of my community to other parts of the country in search of food under heavy checkpoints of AK-47 and different things. Today, the statistics are there. About 65% of Liberian women were allegedly raped, abused, sexually harassed, or molested. We endure hell. Hell that we will never wish on our worst enemies. Many of us were frustrated with the war. Many of us had seen so many things. 14 years into the war, 14 years of our youth going, a few of us women decided we will stand up to what we term as a destruction of our nation. We were sick and tired of Western media showing young boys with guns, showing women being decapitated, showing warlords smoking cigars, and discussing how to distribute natural resources. We decided we wanted to show the world another side of the suffering of the Liberian people. And that side was the side of women and girls and young children. We stepped into a space to protest. We protested the war non-violently. We picketed, we fasted, we prayed, we did whatever it took to draw the attention of those in authority. An agreement was signed based on our persistence. And when the agreement was signed, we decided we were not just going to sit back. We were going back to our country to ensure that that agreement was implemented to the letter. 2 years leading to elections, we continued the work that we started, even though the guns were silent. Someone would say by the grace of God, others would say by the sheer tenacity of the women of Liberia, we made history by electing Africa's first female president. On that note, you will clap. The question then becomes, can the success of the Liberian women be replicated in other areas? The answer is a resounding yes. In many parts of the world, women continue to work for peace. From Mali to Burkina Faso to northern Nigeria, even Palestine, Israel, women continue to make their voices heard. In 2014, a group of Israeli and Palestinian women banded together in what today is known as Women Wage Peace. As part of their advocacy, they are determined to ensure that militarism is not the only way forward in their region. They believe, regardless of what the world thinks, that there is a third way. And the third way is a group of people committed to dialogue, committed to sitting, committed to having conversations because of their collective humanity. One of the best statements that I have seen since the Israeli-Hamas conflict has been that statement from those women. Women who condemned Hamas, but is also condemning Israel's heavy-handedness. These are women who are committed, regardless of the pains that they're feeling, to ensure that war is not the answer for the problems that they have. Women continue to work at community, national, regional, and international levels for peace. Sadly, many international organizations still consider women's roles and contribution as grassroots activism. If we must get to a better and more stable world, everyone's roles must be taken seriously. When we started our activism in Liberia, we didn't start with a budget from the UN, from the US, or from other international bodies. We started with 10 United States dollars from someone's purse. That $10 we used to put a statement out, a bold statement denouncing everything that then President Charles Taylor had said he would not do. We called for immediate unconditional ceasefire. We called for a fruitful dialogue between the warring parties, and we called for the deployment of an international intervention force. Peaceful dialogue, President Taylor had said he will fight until the last soldier died. Deployment of an international force, he said, was sending foreign forces into his sovereign nation. Everything that we wanted at that time was something that he said he would not do. No one believed the tenacity, focus, and desire of the Liberian women would translate to sustainable peace for a nation that had been able to kill almost 10% of her population. Our world is at a place where everyone needs to be taken seriously if we must find peace. If you cover your eyes right now and decide I'm covering one eye to see the entire room, it's going to be impossible. And the reason why it's going to be impossible because you cannot see a full picture with your one eye cover. Trying to do peace in our world without the input, the intellect, the strength and intelligence of women is trying to see a full picture with your one eye cover. Today, we must recognize the important role that women play in building peace. We must include women in every initiative leading to peace processes, not as observers, not as sideline, not as jewels in the process, but as active participants. If you look at all of the photographs from all the peace processes around our world today, all you see is men in suits with no woman at the table or in the photo. It's important for the world to shift. I have been told repeatedly that the meaning of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If we must bring our world to a place where we need to have world peace, stability, we need to begin to do peace differently. We must ensure that funding is important and given to women as part of the work that they're doing. There's no way we can expect to get peace with peanuts when we're using trillions of dollars on war. Women work must be seen as serious work in the process of building peace. In 2003, when the women of Liberia stepped out, we did not imagine, or the world did not imagine, that 20 years later, we will still have stability and not the single firing of a gun. This did not happen because we sat back and got pretty. It happened because we continue to work for peace, for justice in a nation that had been riddled by bullets and guns and bombs, and of a nation where people are hurt. 20 years later, Liberians continue, especially the women of Liberia, to step out into spaces and advocate for equality, for justice, and peace. 2017, we went to elections in Liberia. 2017 was a defining moment for a nation that had never seen a peaceful transfer of power from one democratically elected government to another. Again, the women stepped out to the plate. We were out every day, going from community to community, speaking with young people, speaking with political leaders, ensuring that our elections were held peacefully. 2017, we made history again as that nation that had a peaceful transfer of power from one elected government to the other, something that had never happened for almost 75 years. This year, we had elections again a few months ago. The women have been in the trenches, working for peace, working to ensure that the 20 years of stability is maintained. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the conversations in this room today is about world peace. No one needs to convince us that our world is at a place where peace is really necessary. In order for us to have peace, it is important for us to make sure that women and girls are involved in the process. From Yemen to Syria, to Israel to Palestine, the intellect, strength, and tenacity of women are needed in order to bring our world closer to peace. There can be no peace without women, and there can be no peace without justice. There can be no peace without equality. Let us work together, ensuring that women are part of it. Liberia is a resounding example of peace with women. Other places are failing today because the leaders of those nations refuse to include women in the process. Peace is important, and women are necessary for stability, for peace, for justice, but most importantly, for a stable world. I thank you.